This podcast is meant for general health information and is not meant to override any medical advice. All questions will be screened and not contain any personal information. If you want a private consultation, contact us via positivechoice.org or you can contact your provider directly. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Positive Choice Wellness Podcast. I'm Anneliese. I'm an exercise physiologist.
My name is Melanie. I'm also an exercise physiologist.
And we have a very special guest with us today, Angela Storck-Petersen.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Hi, Melanie. Hi, Anneliese. I am
Hello.
really excited to be here with you today.
We're super excited to have you. I always think of Angela as like, she's this wealth of information around here. And I'm always like, no, let's just hear what Angela has to say about this because I'm sure she has a really good answer.
She gets a lot of random messages from me about like, well, this patient asked this question. I don't know the answer. Do you?
And I'm like, well, this, and that. My long tangents of answers.
But hey, long tangents mean there's a lot of information up there.
Yeah. Well, we get some good questions from our patients. So we want to make sure we give them the answers they need.
Absolutely. So a little background for Angela. She has a BS in nutrition science, and she has a master's of public health. And she also has this really diverse background of being an RD, so heavy nutrition science, and then also working around eating disorders and our relationship with food.
Yeah, I am. Most of my background has actually been in psychiatric care, so I really didn't anticipate that would be my route. I actually thought I was going to be a clinical dietitian in a hospital. When I got out of school, I was like, I'm going to be a clinical dietitian, and I started out in a community program and in working with eating disorder females, and from there I went into clinical psychiatric care, and I love it. Because you get to really follow through with patients, right? You don't just get to see them in a critical care situation for 15 minutes. You get to really work with them sometimes for months at a time, like we do with our patients here. So you get to really see the reward of their change.
Which is the best part of our job.
Which is so rewarding for us, right? You know, I'm sure you see that as an exercise physiologist when somebody reaches that goal that they thought they couldn't do. And same thing with food. So it's interesting. Yeah, my background, it's just working with somebody body and mind, right? So not just their actual nutrition and the number on the scale, right? But all aspects of who they are and how that impacts their weight or their health condition they're trying to modify.
And that's what we're going to dig into today. So we're going to dig into the debunking of the magic solution of weight loss.
There's no magical solution?
There's no pill?
No.
Say it isn't so.
Shockingly. So we started this off with having a nice long discussion today about this and about how it is very easy for people to get fixed on like, what is the magic diet? What is the magic fitness program to fix my weight, my health, my body? And what we know about that is that that's not where the answer lies, right?
It's not one size fits all.
It really isn't. And that's why even this movement now of health at every size is really moving. The positive body image movement, it's really looking at there's no one size fits all solution to weight loss, you know, and health and wellness, right? We are all so unique, and it's really self-monitoring, right, of who you are and what's going to work for you. It's taking what we do here at Positive Choice, or maybe what you see on social media or you hear about, but it's also kind of internalizing that and really making sure that what you're doing is working for you. So, and that's really where the magic happens, is when it comes from you. When you internalize that, that's the magic, and that's the magic trick. But most people think it's external. It's everyone else knows and not me. And really, when we start to do that self-work, then the magic happens.
I love that so much, because that is true. Once you can commit to the program that works for you, that's huge. Now you're in your forever plan. You're not in another diet.
Yeah, your forever plan. I love that. Yeah, it's sustainable. It feels good. It's it's not overwhelming, you know, and I think people can get to that place where we're thrown a bunch of things we have to do, and we might see other people succeeding and doing really well in that. And so we have to just take a step back, right, and think about what's going to work for me. Do I need to take a few tidbits here? Does that speak to me? And I let the other things go. Try a few of those things and give myself space to sort of work through those. I often, when I work with patients in the different programs I teach here, people get so discouraged with their lapses or their failures. And I think personally, or just working with different patients behaviorally, is that's where the magic happens in a sense, because you learn about yourself, you know, what happened with that lapse. And as long as we can be resilient within that and learn from that and move forward, then you learn, you have another tool in your toolbox around what you need to do to practice that self-care.
So it's like a layman analogy I was thinking is like if you take a bunch of like kind of cooked spaghetti and just chuck it at a wall, something's going to stick. Not all of it will, but some of it will, and that's what works.
Melanie, you said that so much more eloquently than I said.
I'm just thinking about spaghetti over here, like, yeah, let's do that. Let's throw spaghetti at a wall. Let's see what's going to happen.
I love that, yeah. And it's unique, right? And it's just your own unique experience. Absolutely, yeah. You're just, and then you decide, you know what works for you, and then you move on and decide what else needs to. And a lot of that is self-monitoring tools. We were talking about that earlier, right? You know, the scale, coming in to get one of our Sika body composition analysis, fitness trackers, food trackers, our support groups, journaling, you know, all of these different things that we're kind of told to do to monitor our weight. And there's so many different tools, and it's really deciding on which ones are going to work for you and which ones, or I would say which ones encourage you and which ones discourage you, which ones lead you towards a better sense of self-efficacy, and which ones discourage you and make you want to go back to old behaviors. And so it's just kind of navigating, right? We were talking about, you know, when you're going through a program and someone else is sharing how well they've done and you don't feel like you have those same results. You know, what are we going to do with that, or, you know, mentally, right? How do we work through that to encourage ourselves and not make that something that's discouraging?
Right. Staying out of comparison mind.
Yeah.
In terms of just because someone else is having success and you're not, doesn't mean you're inherently lost or not going to have the success that you're looking for.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot because I feel like I've been there myself, because my friend had lost 100 pounds. I kept like, why can't I? I could do that, but why can't I do it? Well, then I found out there were some issues with how she lost it, but that was later down the road. And I was like, well, that's why I didn't lose it, because I wasn't doing some disordered eating behaviors.
Yeah.
But it's just the comparison it gets you down.
It absolutely does. I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do is compare ourselves, or want to not really valuing who we are in our body size, and who we are both physically and psychologically, right? You know, offering what we came here to do. I remember I struggled with that as a teenager. I was a cheerleader, and I shot up pretty quickly. I was as tall as I am now, probably in junior high. And then, you know, I've always been pretty muscular, and I always wanted to be the girl that was thrown up in the air. And I never was, because I wasn't the petite one. You know, and I think as I got older and I look back to that experience, I think what a waste of time to have compared myself for so long to these other girls when I was just as valuable, because I'm really strong, right? I'm really muscular and I'm really fit.
Base of the pyramid.
Yes, I'm the base. I'm the structure of that pyramid. And I love that now, you know, to be able to say, oh gosh, I'm so strong. I love that I have like a large muscular body. And so when we get out of that comparison mode, like you said, right, we're much healthier. We experience a greater sense of wellness. And it's at that point we really want to take more care of ourselves, versus when we're discouraged, we usually don't. We're not even in that. We don't like ourselves, and then we overeat and binge Netflix.
Yeah, you eat to feel better about the fact that you hate that you don't feel good about yourself. So like, let me just eat to cope with this bad feeling.
Yeah, you end up in a really funky cycle.
And what a hallelujah moment. I mean, really, if you can let go of the self-hate, especially in thinking that if you hate yourself more, you're going to be more likely to make the changes you want.
Oh my gosh, Anneliese. Yeah, discipline, right? If I think negatively, I'm disciplining myself. And that feels good because oftentimes we've done that for so long, but if you really think about it, not really, right? That discipline or that self-hate or that negative talk really doesn't lead to positive outcomes. Where really that positive affirmation or that positive thought can completely turn around your day or can completely turn around your health experience.
And make you want to care for the thing you're being nice to, which
Exactly,
is yourself.
which is yourself. Yeah, and that's sustainable, right? Then you kind of want to continue this weight loss journey. You look for things to do. You want to meal plan. You want to go exercise. You want to go outside. You look for those things versus, getting into that negative thinking.
It's like punishment almost.
Yeah.
I've heard the phrase a lot in my classes where it's like, I just don't have enough self-discipline. And that irks me. I don't like that phrase.
Or they just say they're lazy.
Yeah.
And same thing, irks me.
Yeah. What would you say to that if someone came to you like, well, I just don't have enough self-discipline, or like, oh, I'm just too lazy to do that? Because I'm sure they fall like kind of into the same bubble.
Yeah, I think so much of it is about motivation, and people want to have a feeling or an emotion. You know, they think that has to kind of come first. Oftentimes it can come from a thought. And I think we oftentimes think of those thoughts, feelings, and emotions as the same thing, but they're exclusive, right? They're not. And so I think that's what we do really well here, don't we, right? We help them navigate a thought that you can act on or not act on versus a feeling, which is fluid, right? Versus an emotion, which is just an internal signal, much like pain, right? That I need to tend to a wound or something, right? And so it's being able to navigate through that. But oftentimes people want to feel that strong motivation. And just because they don't when they're starting this program, and that's, I think, what we're there for is, right, we're able to hopefully motivate, and hopefully the peers on the support group are able to kind of help them through. But it really then does come to them. It's not that they're lazy. It's not that they don't have discipline. The hardest part is putting your shoes on, right? The hardest part is getting up. The hardest part is just choosing that healthier food versus not. And once you do it that one time, it usually gets easier and easier, right? So oftentimes it's
taking the first step.
It's taking that first step, yeah. And again, going back to slowing down a little bit, thinking through what's coming up mentally for you, and being able to share that in a group. And I think when we can process that out, hopefully we can find the motivation that we need to kind of continue going. But monitoring our own thoughts, really taking the time to slow down, I think that's what meditation can be good. And that's another tool we can use to self-monitor ourselves psychologically, right? Well, how am I feeling today? I'm pretty pissed off, or I'm feeling really happy, or, I'm feeling, whatever you're feeling, you kind of gauge, and it's a way to self-monitor. And maybe it's a day that you need to pay extra special attention to yourself because it's just one of those days. Or it's a day where you're feeling really good, and it's the day that you're gonna, run one more mile because you're feeling good that day, or you're just choosing to move further into your fitness routine or further into whatever that health behavior is. So yeah, and journaling can be a good way to do that.
And what I'm kind of putting together in my head is, when we started off talking, we talked about tools to self-monitor, right? So the fitness apps, the food apps, all these ways that we kind of scales, mm-hmm. the ways that we tend to monitor our progress, are the tools that we think that we need to achieve our weight goals. And then, in a very practical sense, coming up with a specified program, we got to think, well, what does work? And then when we're talking about monitoring our feelings and what makes us feel good and what makes us doesn't, could we tie that to the tools as well when we're looking at using like a food app, a food tracking app? If it's not making us feel good, is that something that we can let go of?
I love that. Yeah. We don't have to use these. We know from large studies on those who have maintained weight for a long time, self-monitoring is important. How you self-monitor is very subjective and unique, right? And so learning what works for you and what doesn't, such as the scale or using a food app. Sometimes I've worked with several patients where I thought that maybe they really wanted a calorie level. I tend to be more of a mindful eater. I really want someone to pay attention to their hunger and fullness cues. And although I'm a dietitian and I could definitely calculate out your exact protein needs and how many calories you need and have this great algorithm, that changes. We know, daily your calorie needs. And so it's really you paying attention to yourself, and that's a way to self-monitor hunger. What does actual hunger feel like? What does actual fullness feel like? When they do a food app, that may trigger them to eat more, right? And so it may not work for them, but for the next person, they may be that person that's very number oriented, and the structure of the app works great. And that's a tool to put in their toolbox. For the next person, it's a tool you want to throw out because it's not a tool for you, right?
So if I find myself like obsessing over the scale or obsessing over my calorie intake, I'm allowed to let that go.
Absolutely. I would encourage you to let that go. Yeah. If you get on that scale and that number isn't helping you psychologically, isn't helping you to be positive and think highly of yourself with all the behavior change that you're doing, then letting that go. Now, we know that the scale can be great self-monitoring, and so we definitely want to, I won't let it go completely. I don't want to avoid it, and I never weigh myself because, then we might get into some trouble, but maybe once a month. It's not something I'm doing every single day because someone can definitely use that in an unhealthy way, right?
And, it just reminds me, too, because I've had people in my classes who are very adamant on weighing themselves, and some people weigh themselves multiple times a day, more than 3, like every before every meal, after every meal, like they weigh themselves so much. I'm like, this is a little obsessive.
Yeah.
Which I don't say out loud to them because I don't want to point out hey, you're obsessive.
You're obsessive.
Hey, you got a problem. But
do you think that maybe that might be a little obsessive?
A little bit. But the interesting thing though with them is I say, well, obviously if you weigh yourself throughout the day, your weight will fluctuate just by hormones and water intake and salt and all the things that we do throughout the day. So that's not really a reliable source of information as it is, because it's going to be so different every time you step on it. What if you pick something in your closet, let's say a pair of pants that don't fit quite well, and then that's your test of, okay, am I losing weight and getting where I need, where you pull them up once a week and say, okay, where are they this week? Where are they this week? Where are they this week? And one day you'll button it and go, woohoo, the pants are on. And that's the most exciting feeling in the world, despite muffin top, doesn't matter, it's on, because I've done this. But that's something
Are you judging yourself, Melanie?
No, but it was like, but they're buttoned, and like that mattered to me, and that was exciting. And I think that was more powerful than the scale, because I always tell my patients the scale is just a relationship of gravity and the earth. That's all it is. It's a representation of your gravity pull. That's a gravitational pull. Correction, I said that wrong. But the pants is something that's so tangible, and we can feel it and we notice it. And even if we had a bad week, the pants will tell you the truth.
Absolutely. Your clothing size, how your clothes fit. And I think the opposite can be true. As people are losing weight, they still see themselves as that overweight person. They still see themselves, this is especially true for bariatric patients, right? They still see themselves as that overweight person. I work with somebody in my private practice like this, and she won't take a selfie. She's a young girl. She won't take a selfie, and she refuses to try on her younger clothes, her clothes that are a little smaller. Well, in encouraging her to do so, she fit into the smaller size. She doesn't want to weigh herself. And when she did, she realized she lost a lot of weight. So it's just, again, is it going to be a tool for me? Maybe is that something I use, or is that something I don't use? Instead, sometimes they're avoiding those tools and they actually need to use them. And that's going to help them through that process.
I think the key there is where we get lost as humans with our perception versus the reality. And
yes.
I always say the tools that work best for me, I guess looking at my own personal experience, is that the tools that work best for me are the tools where I can check in on my perception with some factual data, whether that's
I like that.
Putting on a pair of pants at the end of the week where I'm like, oh, you did terrible this week, and then I put my pants on and it's like, but my pants still fit. So clearly my brain has been creating a story that isn't true.
The brain's a powerful thing.
Absolutely. You create this narrative, and sometimes it's that narrative that plays over, that negative narrative. And that's why, really sifting through thoughts, feelings, and emotions, because you can challenge them. Mm-hmm. And then you get resilient through that, really can start to change that for you, where you can check the facts, right? When I worked in clinical eating disorders, we would have people do that. Well, I'm going to gain weight off of carbs. Well, you would have them on a meal plan for some time with carbs, and you'd check the facts. We'd check the facts and show them their weight, and you really didn't. We added carbs to your meal plan, but we've calculated kind of what you needed. And so it's just, you can use tools to support reality, right? And that can change the narrative, because we do get into this negative record that maybe that's in our heads. So we have to kind of learn how to challenge that a little bit. And then that becomes our tool, right? Using tools, I love that, checking the facts.
Yeah.
We need a reality check every now and then.
We all need a reality check. Yeah.
I've had many times. Usually it's Anneliese. So she's like, is this true? She's like, yes, go away. Okay. We need it.
I love the is it true? I tell it to my patients. I'll ask it to Melanie. I'll ask it to, my own patients of, I can challenge you by what you're saying, by saying, but is that true? And you can also challenge yourself by saying, but is that true? When you feel a certain way about things, or you say you're lazy. When I get my patients to say, well, I didn't do it because I'm lazy, I'll be like, well, but do you really think that that's true? Are you truly lazy? And oftentimes the answer is no. And then it's like, well, okay, well, then let's get into why this didn't happen, because it's easy to just be like, oh, I'm just lazy. I just can't do it. Well, that's a cop-out, right? Mm-hmm. And that's allowing yourself to not get into what could be your magic solution.
Absolutely. And that's where the magic happens, right? As you were saying that, I was thinking, same with food trackers, right? Whether it could be a positive tool for you or not so positive. When we create the narrative, well, I don't understand why I'm gaining weight. I eat so healthy. When you actually look at that food journal or food log or food app, you realize, oh, I didn't realize I eat that much, or my portion sizes are so big, or whatever that looks like. So what we perceive, and I think this is what you were talking about earlier, right? We have to really look at our perception and make sure it meets reality, because we might find in that self-monitoring, oh, I actually eat a lot more than I need to, even if it's healthy food. Healthy food, even if I overeat it, right? I can add weight from that. Or people discount, just like I was sharing with the example of that patient, where they don't see themselves for what the good work that they've done, right? And you have to kind of encourage that positive body image. They look at the food journal and they say something like, well, it's because I need to be more self-disciplined with food. But if you looked at their food records, they're doing so good comparatively speaking to maybe 4 weeks ago when you first started working with them. And so it's just really, getting them to understand how to really check in with themselves and acknowledge all the good things that they're doing and kind of use that information to move forward, right?
Yeah. And, while we're talking about this, because the phrase that keeps going through my head, I learned this in my undergrad when I was taking a motor control class called individual differences. And I learned this because there was a question on an exam that said, you're driving on a freeway, there's no exits in sight, everyone slows down, there's no accident, there's nothing going on, everyone slows down. Why? The answer was individual differences, which I got wrong because I was like, wait, what? But someone perceived...
I'm trying to answer this.
Exactly, right? Because you think about wait
a
what?
minute, okay, exit's closed.
Yeah, there's nothing on any reason anyone should slow down. There's nothing going on because someone decided to slow down and caused everyone else to react in the whole thing, and that's why that happened. It was an individual's perception of an event. They decide, oh, I almost got cut off, I'll slow down. Everyone has to slow down as a result, right? So that's what's going through my head. So when we talk about individual differences, because that's kind of the theme, you find what works for you, individual differences. So when it comes to the eating component, because you hear that, oh, I don't do carbs, or oh, I have to do the keto, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. obviously there's no right or wrong way to eat. And you can probably say this too. We don't really truly know 100% what we're supposed to be doing. We're kind of just going with what we know now because it changes all the time.
Right.
The egg
Each
situation,
era.
as we know, the eggs are bad, eggs are good, eggs are bad again. Now they're good, now they're okay. We don't know anymore. Eggs are.
We need a dietitian to come from the future to tell us.
Yes, time traveling dietitians, great video. But when we get to the point where patients are trying to figure out that eating component, we have this individual differences component. How would you go about divvying that out? How do you navigate that? Because if they come in with this attitude of, I need to get rid of carbs, what do you do?
Absolutely. Well, I think that there's some general facts that we know about what certain foods do for our body, right? Including carbohydrates. And most of our, health-providing foods, right? Like our plant foods, we talk a lot about plant foods, contain carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
love doing that. I'm like, hey, did you know fruit's a
do
carb?
you know
What?
a non-starchy vegetable is a carbohydrate?
Celery? What?
Did you know spinach and kale are carbs?
No.
Shocking.
So, it's the word carbohydrate's so evil in our society. And so the types and amounts of carbohydrates, now we can have a serious conversation about that and, the more processed. And so I think it's helping someone understand kind of those basic nutrition facts. But then from there, so I think what can fail in a diet is lack of preference. And I think you said it, Melanie, earlier, individual preference.
Yes.
Sure, I can eat a spinach salad or, Anneliese, she posts these beautiful recipes that you do too. Mm-hmm. You guys, I know you guys are foodies and if you told me you made this beautiful salad and I don't have a preference for that, that's health providing and it's going to meet my weight loss goals. But if I eat the salad and then I also go eat the 2 tacos that I really, really wanted, or I add something to it because it just doesn't meet my preference, I'm going to be over consuming, right? Mm-hmm. And so we really have to pay attention to that because that leads to satisfaction where I feel really good about. So it's even monitoring ourselves within diet culture, right? Mm-hmm. And even the information that we as health experts share. What I say to you may not be true for you at this time. Right? You may need a little bit, you may feel not comfortable having a carbohydrate yet, but at some point you should explore that because carbohydrates aren't bad, right? It's just how many carbohydrates that we have that may be bad
and maybe your perception based on what everyone else is telling you, carbs are bad. And then my friend cut out all carbs and they lost so much weight, or what I hate, I cut out gluten and I lost all this weight.
Gosh.
And it's like, oh my God, go away.
That's my pet peeve. Yes.
That's exactly how I feel.
You can't see, but everybody in the room just cringed and grabbed their own face and
Yes, that's probably should have been our topic today was gluten. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Coming up on future podcasts, 30 minutes on gluten.
Debunking the myth of gluten.
Yes.
Absolutely. You name it, gluten's the functional food of the era that we're looking at, right? We always find some food to sort of demonize, and that's the culprit there. That made me, no, you made you. Like it was your choice, right? It's how we sort of use the information that we get, but also it's listening to that information and not self-reflecting on how you can make it work for you and what's true for you. And oftentimes I think this is stemming from even if we look at how we ate as children, like growing up. Did we pay attention always to how many carbs I'm having or how much protein I'm having? Or I know I didn't. We just kind of ate when we were hungry and we kind of stopped when we were full, usually, right? Until maybe a parent sort of intervened on that, or then we got a little older and maybe started comparing ourselves to other people. But really, that was kind of our gauge. And then as we learned about nutrition information, then these things became bad. So it's kind of even looking at that between what's a good food, bad food. We know there's some healthier foods and not so healthy foods. But again, it's you taking that personal individual preference, right? And deciding what's going to work for you. Because there's no one size fits all. That's a myth, right? There's no magic one size fits all.
If there was, we wouldn't have jobs.
Absolutely. We all would be out on the streets.
They'd be like, yeah, we get it. Vegetables, lean protein, healthy fats. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yes, exactly. We'll just post something outside that can...
Looking for good nutrition advice? Here's your one pager. We'll be good with that now.
I know, isn't it? I always find that people, it seems like we have so much more nutrition information and people are just as confused.
Well, I think there's too much. It's just too much now. Like, but what about the carbs? And then there's the gluten, and then there's this, and then there's that, and then what about this? And then my net carbs is like, oh my goodness, just eat plants.
Yeah.
Just eat plants.
Yeah, eat whole foods. Eat whole foods and really, pay attention to your hunger and fullness cues. Mm-hmm. How are you feeling emotionally today? Do you know that you have an emotional eating pattern? If so, you really need to have a pulse on your emotions on a daily basis to kind of work through that and choose, and kind of build resiliency on choosing or working through some emotions. I always share this story with my class about, what that process looks like in navigating an emotion to get to the bottom of it quickly so that you can move on. And it's really taking a moment, really asking yourself questions, just like if I were to sit across from someone and ask them questions. And once you get to the root cause of it, you're kind of able to really do your own investigative work. And so when we take the time to kind of do that mindfulness practice, if you know you're an emotional eater, that's another tool you can use, is really checking in, or meditation or whatever that may look like. I personally think exercise, so what you guys do here, is paramount, because exercise really brings you back down to your body, right? Where if you're always in your head or you're always thinking, exercise gets you back into your body. And then we also know it has that benefit of mental health wellness, right? It releases those neurotransmitters which make you feel good. Also, it helps with weight loss, but it really brings you back down. And it doesn't always have to be yoga, which we know is very mindful because it's that breath work. But going for a really vigorous run can be just as meditative, in my opinion. You guys are the experts, but
oh no,
she's in 100% agreement. I just listen to my music.
Well, I think exercise is a form of meditation, because you're right, it brings Absolutely. You into the moment. The second your body is uncomfortable, you have to focus on that, and you Absolutely. Can't focus on what you might ruminate on other times. So yeah, when you were talking, I'm just like nodding my head vigorously.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got
absolutely.
it right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I think, and that's such an antidote, right? When we think about, okay, I've recognized I'm an emotional eater, and so that's a perfect antidote, right? Is learning to use exercise or movement in any way. It doesn't have to be vigorous right away, but eventually you'll find kind of what works for you. But yeah, getting out of your mind and into your body really helps you sort of self-monitor. So it's a great tool to add to your toolbox.
Yes. Well, Angela, this has been amazing.
I'm having so much fun. I really don't want to stop talking. So
well, good, because
we'll have to bring you back then.
We're gonna have you back, and
okay.
We're gonna talk about like all the little side things we dipped our toe in today,
yes.
And we'll expand on that.
I will be back anytime you guys want me to.
Yay!
Yeah.
But if you're listening to this and this resonates with you, Angela said it really well. This is what we do best here at Positive Choice, and we have so many programs. And Angela is available for one-on-one appointments. But also, Angela has been a key figure in this like revamping that we've been doing during the pandemic of our medical weight management classes, our partial fast, our full fast, and then we have classes like solutions for food addiction, and we have one-on-one appointments and healthy balance. So if this feels like it's really resonating with you, we have so many tools for you here. So go check out our website, positivechoice.org. Everything is on there. And then we'll put in little links at the bottom for you guys to contact us directly if you want something a little bit more.
Absolutely. You have to come visit us. We're another tool in your toolbox.
That's right.
You don't need a big toolbox.
Yeah.
We have it all organized right here. It's good. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us again, Angela. And thank you, everybody who's listening.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I looked away for a half second. I'm so sorry. But thank you all. And until next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.